From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Wednesday, June the 24th, 2020. The United Nations Security Council held a special virtual session today discussing the possibility of Israel applying sovereignty to parts of the West Bank. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres addressed the video teleconference briefing, which was entitled "The Situation in the Middle East, Including the Palestinian Question," where he reiterated his opposition to any unilateral move on the part of Israel. Guterres said if implemented, annexation would constitute a most serious violation of international law, calling on the Israeli government to abandon any such plans. Guterres stressed the need for a two-state solution based on the pre-1967 lines, with Jerusalem as capital of both states. And he called for the Middle East Quartet, which is comprised of the UN, the United States, the European Union, and Russia, to act as mediators and find a mutually agreeable framework for the parties to re-engage without preconditions with us and other key states. Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, defended Israel, telling the video conference, should Israel decide to extend its sovereignty, it would be doing so with respect to areas over which it has always maintained a legitimate historical and legal claim, stressing that the discussion over the extension of Israeli sovereignty to certain areas in Judea and Samaria does not stand in the way of peace. What stands in the way of peace, Danon said, is Palestinian rejectionism and the encouragement that they get from some in the international community. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was asked today about the issue as well. He said the decision about Israel extending sovereignty towards these places are decisions for the Israelis to make. In regards to the Palestinians, Pompeo said, "We simply ask that they come to the negotiating table based on what's outlined in that vision for peace," referring to the U.S. peace plan, and they have chosen not to. Pompeo said what we've asked is for them to come together, for Israel and the Palestinian people to come to the table to negotiate a path forward and to find a resolution to this decades-long challenge. I remain hopeful, he said, that in the coming weeks we can begin to make real progress towards achieving that. While Jewish organizations are condemning a recent slew of anti-Israel resolutions passed by the UN Human Rights Council, 4 passed on Monday, another this past Friday. The 4 were part of Agenda Item 7, the only standing item that singles out one UN member state, Israel, and is raised at every session to debate human rights violations against the Palestinians. B'nai B'rith International's Charles Kaufman and Daniel Mariashin wrote, "The UNHRC regularly singles out Israel by passing numerous resolutions that solely and falsely allege Israeli misdeeds." The World Jewish Congress tweeted that the bias at the UN is glaring. President Ronald Lauder noted there was little mention of violations committed by terror group Hamas, such as the firing of rockets against Israeli civilians. Rather, he wrote, the Council continued its long, one-sided anti-Israel tirade without any regard for the real facts on the ground. A groundbreaking ceremony was held Monday in Austria for a new Holocaust memorial. The Associated Press reports the memorial to the Jewish children, women, and men of Austria who were murdered in the Shoah will sit in the central Osteriki Park in Vienna, engraved with the names of 64,000 Austrian Jews murdered by the Nazis. There are at least 1,000 other Jews that were murdered as well, but their names are unknown. Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem became the first place in the world to test a passive vaccine for coronavirus, giving a patient an antibody treatment, immunoglobulin G. The hospital has been collecting plasma with antibodies from recovered COVID-19 patients to give to those critically ill with the virus, administering it yesterday to a young woman with serious underlying medical conditions who has not responded to any other treatment. But after the antibody treatment, her condition was said to have stabilized, giving doctors some hope. The treatment is being done with the approval of Israel's Ministry of Health and in cooperation with Magen David Adom. Hadassah CEO Professor Ze'ev Rothstein said, "We have our fingers crossed for the successful treatment of this patient." And cautious optimism about another Israeli effort against the deadly virus. Redhill Biopharma, based in Tel Aviv, has run a very small study of the drug opaganib, which it says showed substantial benefit to coronavirus patients. The study was only of 5 people seriously ill with the virus who were given the drug at Jerusalem's Shaarei Tzedek Medical Center. The independent study was posted online yesterday. It has not yet been peer-reviewed, meaning it has not yet been evaluated. A testing of opaganib on a larger group of 40 patients here in the U.S. is now underway. Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Wednesday, June the 24th at 7 o'clock, we hear from the daughter of a high-ranking Hamas sheikh who was rescued by the Orthodox Jewish Outreach and Counter Missionary Organization in Israel, Yad La'achim. And at 7:30, author Robert Spencer talks about the Palestinian narrative regarding the land from the river to the sea, and how that narrative is an obstacle to peace. At 9, Mark Golub sits down with Israeli activist Einat Wilf and Israeli journalist Adi Schwartz, who talk about the Palestinian insistence on a right of return, which a priori makes any peace agreement with Israel impossible, detailed in their book, The War of Return. At 10:30, Larry King speaks at the 2017 Jerusalem Post Conference. And coming up next, it's Thinking Out Loud with Micah Halpern. And that's the JBS News Update for Wednesday, June the 24th, 2020. I'm Teisha Bader. Stay healthy, stay well.